Good day to you. You know what's going on in Ukraine, right? I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, have never been to Ukraine. I've never been to Ukraine, but you know what's going on, right? You know, right? Well, come to think of it, how do you know what's going on in Ukraine? Probably you know because of people you talk to, but maybe even more so because of the news reports that you're watching. In fact, how do you know really much about the world? How do you know that the earth is round? How do you know that when winter comes, it's going to get cold? How do you know what the Phillies scored last night? You know because of media, right? Because in most of those circumstances, you're not experiencing those stimuli directly and making up your own mind. You're learning through television or the web or your phone or radio or newspapers. Probably not newspapers, but you're learning through media. So I'm introducing a concept in the very beginning of this course as we take on chapter 1 in this class, which is introducing critical media studies. That's what we're doing in this instructor video. I'm introducing the concept of how do we know what we know, and that's how this course is starting. And there's a term for knowing through direct sensory perception. That means when you walk outside and you feel the raindrops on your skin and you say, I know it's raining. That's called somatic knowledge, or knowing somatically, somatically, knowing through your direct sensory perceptions. But when it comes to media, the vast majority of which is the way that we learn about the world through media, we are learning differently. We're learning symbolically. We're not learning somatically. We're learning symbolically, which is we know about something through something else. Something comes in between. Something mediates what we're getting information-wise. And that's where we get mass media from. Mass media, and the singular of which is mass medium. That's a singular medium, like the internet or like television. A medium is something that's in the middle, right? It comes in the middle. We talk about a medium when we drive on a highway. It comes in between two lanes to keep you from crossing over. So it's a profound statement, really, when we are talking about what we know about the world, to acknowledge that media come in the middle. And that's why we have a class like this. That's why we have this class, Media Criticism, to try and understand how mass media reaching these really large audiences, sometimes in the millions of people, like the Olympics did, how mass media can reach these masses of people and what kind of effect media have. So we're going to study media in this class. We're going to study media from a variety of perspectives. And we want to categorize mass media so that we understand what we mean when we use that term, right? Because a lot of people use that term. We don't know exactly what it means. So in general, the term media is very broad. It could cover something as ancient as a cave drawing, the drawing of a cow being slaughtered, which would be a common cave drawing in ancient times. It's a very broad term. It can be a t-shirt. It can be a poster. It could be a billboard. So it can include those kinds of things, but more typically we think of media as involving legacy media or social media. Legacy media are going to be those traditional mass media forms of newspapers, radio, television, and film. Those are legacy media. And then we have newer social media that are internet-based media, and those are going to be the social media platforms. They're going to be search engines. They're going to be the way that we use the internet in essence. This course is covering mass media. We're going to be looking at mass media, so both legacy media and also social media is what we're taking a look at. And we're seeing those two worlds collapsing and colliding with each other and trying to figure out how to accommodate each other, the traditional broadcasters accommodating social media. I do want to give you a brief history of media so that we understand how we got to the stage that we're at, and so that we can then proceed to start analyzing media. And it's very interesting what's happened over the years to media. And we do want to mention probably the most important invention ever, some people think, and that's the Gutenberg printing press in 1450. The Gutenberg printing press. Now, how could that be the most important invention ever? Well, Johannes Gutenberg was a German, and he invented this means of producing pages in a factory process, one after another, bang, 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 producing pages, whereas before you had to produce a page by writing it out by hand in a scriptoria. That's what monks did when books were first being written. It took them 5 years to write a book. When the Gutenberg printing press came out, bang, you could push out newspapers, magazines, and later books. So why is that the most important invention in the world? It's because it sparked a revolution. It sparked a revolution in the dissemination of knowledge. We can even say that this revolution caused the fall, in some ways, of Roman Catholicism over to Lutheranism, because it said that people now have access to the Bible on their own, and they can learn about a God. If you're a religious person, I'm not, but this is the way that the Gutenberg printing press affected religion, and specifically the Roman Catholic religion, is it said you don't have to go through the priest anymore to learn about a God. And so it completely reformed religion and actually brought into our way of thinking societally a whole new scientific-based reasoning. Because now you could read written reports and scientific experiments and experiments over and over and over to make sure that they are controlled. The Gutenberg printing press, it changed the world, changed life forever. We can say that we have democracy because of the Gutenberg printing press, because people can make their own minds up and then vote rather than have to rely on a leader to make their minds up for them. Later on, we can say that magazines came along after the Gutenberg printing press, and another printed form. But eventually we do move away from printed form of media, even though they never completely collapse. They always get reinvented and reformed in new media forms. And we move over to motion picture and sound recording. That comes next. And whereas we mentioned the Gutenberg printing press as being in the 1450s, now we're talking about the 1800s. We're talking about a bunch of inventions that were invented by Thomas Edison, who's living only an hour and 15 minutes away from here, just outside of New York City. In fact, you have the Edison National Park that you can go visit. Thomas Edison, he's mostly known for his inventions in the area of electronics. He had a phonograph, a kinetoscope. You can read about those. They have to do with filmmaking. They're in your book. That's another phase in the development of media. Then after that, we get broadcast media. Broadcast media come on the scene in the 1900s, roughly 1920, and for the first time, profoundly speaking, communication, if it's mass communicated, did not have to be transported. Think about that. If you want to mass communicate using a newspaper, you have to put that newspaper on a train or a plane or a truck and get it where it's going. Same with a letter. Same with a magazine. Same with a film, really. You had to carry the film in its case and the film inside the case to where it's going. But when broadcast media come along in the 1920s, now you can send a signal from Pittsburgh and somebody can receive it through their radio receiver in Los Angeles. So for the first time, you don't have to transport communication that has a profound implication for how we intake media. That's broadcasting, radio and TV coming about. Originally in the early 1920s and then full-fledged on today. Then after that, we come into new media. New media where computing technology and the internet are at the core. Computers communicating with each other. It's called the information age that we're in, if you want to think of it that way. It's a network era, if you want to think of it that way. It's a digital age, if you want to think of it that way. It's post-modernity, if you want to get really philosophical. That refers to any time period after industrialization in the 1800s. The point is that the mass production of standardized goods has given way to the reproduction of customizable content in our current environment. And what that means is if you wanted to watch a TV show in the past, that would be a standardized good. You'd have to be in front of your TV set at 8 o'clock at night. Oh yeah, I have to be here. If I'm not here at 8 o'clock, I'm going to miss that show. But today, content is customizable. You can watch trailers. You can watch outtakes. You can influence the content of shows like Dancing with the Stars, where you send a text. And so today's new media environment makes media content much more customizable according to the user. Also, media today are highly mobile. Media are highly mobile. Many of you in this class will be taking this class while you're on the go. You'll be taking it in your car. You'll be taking it at where you work. You'll be taking it at a Starbucks. You'll be taking it on your phone. You'll be taking it on a laptop. You'll be taking that laptop with you in your car. You'll be taking your phone with you in your pocket. Today, our intake of media is mobile. No longer are we just sitting in a living room. No, we're not just taking in media that way anymore. And so that also affects what we're going to talk about in this course, as well as our understanding of how media have developed. Something else that has taken place because of new media primarily is fragmentation. Fragmentation, this is the splintering of the audience into really specialized taste cultures, if you want to think about that. So splitting the audience has been done by cable television, it's done by the internet, and it makes it possible for media content to appeal to very specific tastes. For example, there's a whole channel on television just for golf. And yet how many people in the general population golf? But golfing fanatics, they can watch golf 24 hours a day and buy golf products all from that all from that channel. How many people are on Instagram and you're following somebody who's recommending products all the day? Your influencer is somebody who has a major impact on your life. That's what we're talking about here. That's somebody you know, but you don't know the same you don't know that I'm watching David Portnoy. Do you know who David Portnoy is? He's a guy who reviews pizzas, and he owns the company Barstool Sports. Like, that's a very individual taste culture that he's appealing to, people who like pizza. It's not a broad kind of media content that everybody would be interested in. That's what's happened through fragmentation. The audience has become very fragmentation. At the same time, though, we have globalization going on in media content. Globalization is where the cultures of the world and the governments and the peoples are coming closer and closer together. We're coming closer together because we know more about each other. We think we know, right? Semantically or symbolically. That's for you to decide. We know more about each other. We can see content from other countries very easily. I'm watching CNN right now, Ukraine coverage. The reporter is English. What is an English reporter doing on CNN? Because globalization says that's perfectly acceptable today. We have an intermingling going on, and so media content is circling not just within your country, it's going all over the world. I'd like now to introduce our first theoretical concept. It comes from Jean Baudrillard. He's a Frenchman, Jean Baudrillard, and it's from his book Simulacra and Simulation. And he has this term, simulation, that's what I want to talk about. And what simulation is, it's the generation of real without origin or reality. It's the generation of real without origin or reality. Yes, we're talking about video gaming here. Yes, we're talking about playing a rock guitar on a Wii game. Yes, we're talking about phishing on the internet, trying to get somebody to purchase something when you're not who you say you are, or trying to get somebody to fall into a romance when you're not presenting yourself as accurately as you should. All of this is speaking to the idea that the internet has presented us with simulation. It's not just that we know that we are moving into a virtual world when we go online and gaming or playing guitar, or those other examples I gave. It's that this new reality actually presents itself as being real. That's what simulation is about. That's what Jean Baudrillard says. Now let's ask the question, why study the media? Why study the media? I mean, that's going to be ultimately for you to answer by the end of this course. But we can say that one reason is because media have subsumed caretakers of our society. In other words, our caretakers used to be the people we looked to for guidance, and those people were not in the media. They were our parents, our teachers, older brothers and sisters, priests. They could be people who are a neighborhood elder statesman. I don't mean statesman, but somebody who's been around for a while. That's what I'm trying to say. Those are the people that used to be our caretakers today. Today we look to YouTube. Today we look to Instagram. Today we look to TikTok. Many people got through the pandemic with TikTok, constantly scrolling through TikTok vids. So media have subsumed caretakers. It's another reason to study them. A second reason is because media are primarily responsible for our socialization. That is, telling us how to learn, how to act, how to think, how to feel. How do you know when you go up to a door if there's a lady, you hold it for a lady? Does that happen in every country? Do you learn that just from going to the grocery store? Do you see that repeated in movies and sitcoms and other kinds of TV shows? How do you know that on 4th of July you're supposed to eat hamburgers and hot dogs and not pasta? Do you do that just by being in a bunch of backyards over the years, or are you seeing that repeated in media? So media are responsible in a large way for our socialization. And then next up, we have the final reason why study media, and that's because media have gone from one institution amongst many to being the very basis of our culture. That is to say that media are primarily how we understand culture today. Media rival and in many ways exceed government as institutions that organize our society. So those are some really big reasons to study media. Now, what do we learn when we study media? We learn about two things. We learn about content. When we learn about content, we're learning about that informational component that's inside of the media. The weather forecast is what is saying is going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be another cold day if you consider the 30s cold. That's an example of informational content in the media. And the content can be examined according to how truthful it is, how accurate it is, how meaningful it is. 34 tomorrow is no big deal in February or the first day of March, but if it's in June, that's a big deal. So content has different dimensions to how meaningful it is. The second aspect that we learn is form. Form is the way that a message is packaged. It's kind of the look and the feel of the message. We know in film, for example, it has a very linear progression to its form. If you get lost at one point, you can't back the film up if you're in a theater. It just keeps moving. Just keeps moving right to the very end. As opposed to a song, right? A song has a circular form because you can have a refrain in the song where the singers come back and sing the same phrase at different points in the song. That's not linear like a film. So form is something else that we learn when we study media. Now let's take on doing critical media studies. That's what we'll be doing in this whole course, media criticism. Media studies and critical media studies is a general umbrella term, and what it's used to describe, the way that I started out this course today was asking you how you know what you know about the world. That's how we started out our instructor video today. And so this helps you know about the world if you're performing critical media studies, because first of all, you are performing a skeptical attitude. A skeptical attitude when you look at media. You're saying, wait a minute, there's more than meets the eye here. I got to find out who's paying for this. I got to find out what other kinds of things are going on that led to this content. Skeptical attitude. It's the first step in performing critical media studies. Secondly, we want you to have a humanistic approach in this class. A humanistic approach. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you look at universities, they are divided into departments. And those departments are parts of schools. And amongst departments and schools, you have disciplines and programs. So you have one school or one department or one area of the university that's usually studying things from a scientific vantage point. Experimentation, control groups, replication, validity. That's the way that scientists study reality. That's not what we're doing in this course. We are taking a humanistic approach. We are going to study theoretical perspectives, many of which are coming from philosophers, psychologists, sociologists. It is a theoretical way of understanding the world. That's a second thing that we do critical media studies for. A third thing that we do critical media studies for is political assessment. Political assessment. Political assessment doesn't refer to political parties. It refers to whose interests are being served by the media. Whose interests? And are those interests related to who owns different parts of that production process? We have to figure that out to know if there are alternative motives behind media content. And lastly, we do critical media studies for social justice. We don't just do it to study it and say, oh, this exists. We actually do it to try and change things. That's what the BLM movement is about. That's what the just about every movement that takes place is about, that tries to overturn inequities in our life. They are social justice movements. In this class is about trying to make change where there are those inequities. You'll have to decide those for yourself, by the way, but the point is that the class spurs you to make those changes. All right, so that takes us to the last idea for today's instructor video, and that is key critical perspectives. Key critical perspectives, and basically that's what each chapter is. It's a key critical perspective, and each theoretical perspective is going to be based on a theory. A theory is an explanatory and interpretive tool that simultaneously enables and limits understanding. Whoa, what a mind-blowing statement. A theory is an explanatory and interpretive tool that simultaneously means at the same time enables our understanding, but also limits our understanding. So it's a way of seeing the world, a theory is. It implies blind spots at the same time. We're going to be studying theoretical perspectives in this class. We're going to be studying organizational analysis as a theoretical perspective. We're going to be studying rhetorical analysis as a theoretical perspective. We're going to be studying political analysis as a theoretical perspective, psychoanalytic analysis as a political perspective, feminism as a political perspective, queerism as a political perspective, eroticism as a, sorry, not political perspective, got my words trapped up, as a theoretical perspective. These are the chapters of the book, and this is how we're going to pull media apart. So this is bringing to a close my instructor video on chapter 1. It's going to be very different from the rest. It's setting up the rest of the course, and I hope you're looking forward to these theoretical perspectives and how they can show you what you truly know about the world. Have a great day.